Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. When people hear the word hospital, they think of life and death, emergencies and miracles. For me, it had always been a place of purpose. It gave my long nights meaning, endless shifts under fluorescent lights, adrenaline, responsibility. But it also took me away from home, away from Lauren. I told myself I was doing it for us. That the long hours, the missed dinners, the nights spent sleeping in the on-call room were sacrifices a good man made for his family. I wore that narrative like armor. I had to, because when I walked through that front door each morning, there was never a warm smile or a waiting cup of coffee. There was Lauren, distracted and distant, scrolling through her phone, barely glancing up. Rough night, I'd ask, unbuttoning my jacket, voice low. She'd shrug. You chose that schedule, Brandon. No one forced you. No warmth. No thanks. Just that cold tone she perfected. At first, I thought she was just tired, maybe overwhelmed. I told myself I was reading too much into it. But over time, it became a pattern. The small digs. The jokes at my expense when friends were over. Don't let Brandon cook. Last time, he nearly set the kitchen on fire. She'd laugh like it was all fun. But I saw the way people looked at me, like I was a punchline. At a family dinner one Sunday, it reached a boiling point. Her mom asked, "So, Brandon, when do you sleep with all those night shifts?" I smiled politely. "Whenever I can. Usually mornings." Lauren snorted. "Yeah, that's code for he crashes on the couch and leaves dishes in the sink." The table laughed. Everyone except me. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my cool. "Lauren," her dad said, trying to diffuse the moment, "he's working to take care of you. That's nothing to joke about." She waved him off. "Oh, he knows I'm joking. Right, babe?" I forced a smile, but inside, something cracked. Later, when we got home, I pulled her aside. "What was that about?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She rolled her eyes. "It was a joke, Brandon. Don't be so sensitive. That wasn't a joke. You made me look like a lazy idiot in front of your entire family." She crossed her arms. "If you don't like the way it looks, maybe do something about it. Maybe try being present for once." I stood there, stunned. I work every night to make sure we're stable. I give everything I have to this house. To you. She didn't even blink. "Yeah, well, sometimes it feels like you're married to your job." Not me. I walked away, heart pounding, hands shaking. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing beside me. I kept thinking, was this what our marriage had become? Was I just some burden she tolerated while living the life I provided? The answer, I feared, was yes. But something about the way she smirked at me that night, like she knew she could say anything and I'd still come home, still keep giving, left a deeper scar than I expected. I wasn't ready to admit it yet, but a seed had been planted, and it was only a matter of time before the truth took root. Tuesday night. It was always Tuesday night. I didn't notice it at first. My schedule made me numb to days of the week. Shift work will do that to a person. But lately, there was a rhythm to Lauren's routine I couldn't ignore. She was always awake when I came home early on Tuesdays. Not just awake, wired. Dressed in pajamas, but with her makeup a little too perfect, hairstyle like she had gone somewhere, but claimed to have just been cleaning. And then there was the smell, body spray. Not quite hers, with a trace of men's cologne in the hallway near the back door. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was stress, exhaustion, paranoia. But that illusion cracked wide open when I stepped out into the backyard one morning to let the dog out and saw them, footprints, fresh, too close to the fence. A second set, and not mine. At first, I stood there, staring at the ground like an idiot, unsure of what to think. The fence between our yard and Tyler's, our next-door neighbor, had a narrow gate. It was locked from our side. Always had been. But as I followed the prints, they trailed from our back patio to that very gate, and something I hadn't noticed before stood out. Scratches on the wood, like someone had been slipping it open just enough to squeeze through. My chest tightened. My mind started spinning. I confronted Lauren that evening, casually, trying not to sound accusatory. "You been walking the dog late at night?" I asked, spooning chili into a bowl. She didn't look up from her phone. "Sometimes, yeah." "Why?" There were footprints in the yard. She finally glanced at me. "What are you, a detective now?" she said, smirking. I smiled back, but it didn't reach my eyes. Just curious. They were mine. She rolled her eyes. Maybe they were from when I took the trash out. Relax. But I didn't relax. And I didn't sleep that night either. By Thursday, I had installed the wildlife cam. I told her I'd seen a raccoon in the yard and wanted to catch it before it got into the garbage. She barely acknowledged it, mumbled something about me being obsessed with man projects again, then turned up the volume on her show. That night, she took the dog out at 11:47. I watched her walk past the sliding door, leash in hand, wearing pajama pants and one of my old hoodies. I gave it 20 minutes before I checked the camera feed. There she was. On the screen, in night vision green and gray, Lauren crept across the yard. The leash dragged behind her, no dog in sight. She slipped through the gate and disappeared behind Tyler's garage. 45 minutes later, she returned. Same hoodie, different hair, and a satisfied smirk on her face as she stepped back inside. I watched the footage twice, then a third time. I wanted to scream, throw something, confront her, but I didn't. I turned off the monitor, sat down at the kitchen table, and stared at my hands. They were trembling. I needed more. One video wouldn't cut it. She'd deny it, twist it, find some way to blame me. So I let her do it again. The following Tuesday, then Thursday. Each time, same path, same duration, same gate, and always the same neighbor, Tyler. Friendly, fit, always washing his car, shirtless in the driveway, like some cliché out of a bad movie. We'd had beers once, months ago, talked football. He'd even said, "You got a good one in Lauren." Yeah, real good. I spent that weekend doing everything in my power not to blow up. I play my part, cooked dinner, folded laundry, nodded through her shallow conversation. But every second was torture. She talked about the baby shower she wanted, about names she liked. She asked if I'd be able to get off work when the baby was due. She smiled and rubbed her belly like it was some sacred bond between us. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop seeing her on that night vision screen. On Monday, I scheduled a DNA test for her after the birth. Quietly, privately, I told myself I needed to know for sure, even though my gut had already screamed the truth. And still, I said nothing. That week, Tyler invited us to a barbecue. Neighborhood thing. I said yes. Lauren grinned and kissed me on the cheek. "You're finally being social again," she said. I smiled. Yeah, thought it was time. Inside, I was already planning everything. She thought she had gotten away with it. She thought I was still the guy who kept his head down, worked late shifts, and never asked too many questions. She had no idea I was done being that man. No idea what was coming. The waiting was the worst part. Once you know the truth, once it's right there on a screen in black and white, it takes everything you have not to explode. I'd watch Lauren lean back on the couch, pretending to yawn after dinner and glance out the sliding glass door like it was just routine. "I'll let the dog out," she'd say casually, like it meant nothing. And I'd nod, act tired, pretend to go to bed. But I was wide awake, sitting with the monitor in my lap, watching her slip through the yard like a thief. Not even bothering with the leash anymore. Just walking through the dark with her hood up, moving toward Tyler's garage like it was some kind of nightly ritual. Every time I saw her vanish into the neighbor's property, it chipped away at whatever pieces of love or loyalty I still had left for her. And yet, I still didn't say anything, because I wasn't ready to blow it up, not until I had everything. The camera footage wasn't enough. I knew she'd cry, deny, manipulate. She'd twist the narrative like she always did. If I confronted her now, she'd accuse me of spying, of being paranoid, of making it up. She was good at rewriting reality. I had lived in her version for far too long. So I waited. And then it happened. It was a Saturday morning. I came home after a brutal 12-hour night shift, and Lauren met me at the door, her face pale, eyes wide. "I took a test," she said, holding a little white stick in her hand. "I'm pregnant." I froze. Every sound in the world seemed to fall away. I stared at that stick like it was a loaded weapon. I forced myself to speak. "Are you sure?" She nodded quickly, nervously, eyes searching my face for a reaction. "Yes." I didn't want to believe it at first, but I've been feeling off, and then last night I knew. I wanted you to be the first to know." I nodded slowly, heart pounding. "Wow. Okay." She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me. "This is a good thing, right? I know it's sudden, but maybe it's a blessing. I hugged her back gently. Of course, it's a blessing. And just like that, the game changed. From that moment on, Lauren walked around with renewed confidence. She cooked more, cleaned more, acted like the past few months had been wiped clean. Her phone stayed face up on the counter. She stopped going out late, stopped using the back gate, like she knew the stakes had changed and was scrambling to repair the image of the perfect wife. I played along. I smiled when she smiled. I asked about her cravings. I went to doctor's appointments. I listened to heartbeat recordings and nodded when she said things like, "I think it's a boy." But behind the scenes, I was gathering everything. I downloaded and backed up all the wildlife footage. Every clip of her slipping through that gate. I called the DNA lab and confirmed the process. I need a sample from me, and then once the baby was born, one from the child. They'd handle the rest. I even started documenting her routines, screenshots, timestamps, receipts. If this ever made it to court, I'd have more than just a hunch. Tyler remained oblivious. Or maybe not. Maybe he was waiting too, unsure what to do now that his late-night hookup had become something real. I caught him one afternoon washing his car, glancing toward our house when he thought I wasn't looking. We made eye contact. He gave me a weak wave. I gave him nothing. I don't know what he saw on my face, but he looked away and didn't wave again. The day of the barbecue finally came. I knew it was time. Lauren had helped Tyler plan the whole thing. She baked a casserole, spent hours on decorations, even wore one of those stretchy maternity dresses that hugged her new figure. She looked radiant, like she had everything figured out. I cracked a beer, chatted with neighbors, laughed at jokes. I played the good husband, the excited father-to-be. People clapped me on the back, congratulated me, told me I was glowing more than the mom-to-be. I smiled, thanked them, raised my glass. Then, just as the sun started to set, I walked to the center of the yard, lifted my drink, and called for a toast. "Hey, everyone, can I get your attention real quick?" The chatter died down. Heads turned. I held up my bottle. I just wanted to say thanks to our wonderful host, Tyler. Really, you've been such a great neighbor. A few polite chuckles rippled through the group. I smiled wider. And now, even more than that. He's part of the family. Tyler's brow furrowed. Lauren's smile faltered. I looked right at her. Because Tyler isn't just my neighbor, he's also the father of my wife's baby. Gasps echoed around the yard. Lauren's mouth dropped open. Tyler's face turned white. "Don't worry," I added, lifting my beer again. "I won't make it awkward. I've already packed her things." I turned and pointed toward the driveway, where her suitcase sat next to a big cardboard sign I made the night before. "Free to a bad home." Lauren's legs buckled. Someone caught her. Tyler stood frozen, speechless. I gave them one last look, then walked away. I changed the locks that night. She never set foot in my house again. The aftermath of the barbecue was quieter than I expected. Not that I was hoping for fireworks, but you'd think when a man exposes his cheating wife and the neighbor who knocked her up in front of 20 people, there'd be more fallout. Maybe it was the way I handled it, so clean, so final, that no one really knew how to respond. There were no calls from neighbors, no awkward doorbell rings the next day. Just silence. A few of them must have been too shocked to do anything, or maybe they just didn't want to get involved. I didn't blame them. I sat on the back porch that night, beer in hand, staring at the gate Lauren had used to sneak away so many times. It was still slightly ajar. The wind nudged it against the fence softly, like it hadn't just been part of a full-blown betrayal. I'd already removed the camera. It had done its job, and the hard drive was locked in my office drawer in case I needed it again. Part of me thought I should burn it all, but the other part knew that truth, once captured, has a purpose beyond vengeance. Laura didn't come back that night, or the next. She must have gone to her sister's place across town. I didn't care enough to find out. What stunned me more was that Tyler didn't even attempt to contact me. Not a word. No knock on the door. No text. He vanished. Like he'd always known this was temporary, and the minute it got real, he bolted. The neighborhood moved on quickly, but I could feel the shift. Some of the wives gave me sympathetic looks when I jogged past in the mornings. A few husbands avoided eye contact altogether. And then there were the whispers. I caught them in snippets as I passed a hedge or across the sidewalk. Words like pregnant, DNA, neighbor. I didn't mind. Let them talk. Let them remember. Lauren, on the other hand, was spiraling. It started with the texts. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. Please, Brandon, we have a history. You don't just throw that away. It was a mistake. Tyler was just... I was lonely." Each message was more pathetic than the last. I didn't answer. She switched to voicemails. I didn't listen. Then she showed up. It was Thursday afternoon. I had just come back from work, still in my scrubs, exhausted from a back-to-back shift. I found her sitting on the front steps, face blotchy from crying, arms wrapped around her stomach. She stood as I approached. "Brandon, please." I didn't stop walking. "You need to leave." "I don't have anywhere to go," she said, stepping in front of me. "My sister doesn't want me there. And Tyler, he won't talk to me." I unlocked the front door and pushed it open. "Not my problem." She grabbed my arm. "Brandon, this isn't just about us anymore. I'm pregnant." I turned, slowly, meeting her eyes. "And the father lives next door." Her lip trembled. "He won't take responsibility." I laughed under my breath. "What a shocker." "Please," she whispered, "don't punish the baby for my mistake." I stared at her for a long moment. This was her new angle, using the child as leverage. The very child she never intended to tell me wasn't mine. "You had a choice, Lauren," I said. "Every Tuesday, every Thursday. You made it." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I miss you." "No," I said quietly. "You miss what I gave you. The safety, the name, the image of a stable home. But me? You never loved me. You loved the life I built and figured you could do whatever you wanted as long as I kept showing up for it." She looked shattered, like she'd finally understood that the door she thought might still be cracked open was locked. I stepped back inside and closed the door in her face. I leaned against it for a moment, breathing deeply, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Not the kind that comes from revenge or rage, but from reclaiming your life. From knowing that the worst is behind you and the future, whatever it holds, is yours again. I called David that evening, my lawyer, told him I was ready to move forward with filing. He asked if I had all the documentation. I told him I had everything. More than enough. "Are you seeking full separation of assets?" he asked. "She gets nothing," I said. "No house, no money, and definitely no say in anything that's mine." David exhaled. "Good. Let's end this." And that's exactly what I planned to do. The morning after Lauren showed up crying on the steps, I woke up earlier than usual. I don't know if it was the weight of what I said to her or the silence that followed, but I sat in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd let it get this far. Not the betrayal. There was nothing I could have done to stop her from doing what she did. But the part where I had ignored the signs, explained away the cold shoulder, the dismissive smirks, the unexplained absences. I had been so desperate to believe that love, once given, would be enough to hold a marriage together. That if I kept giving, she'd eventually appreciate what she had. Instead, she gave it away to the guy next door. It wasn't love. It was entitlement. She saw my loyalty as permission to betray. I got up, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with a pen in hand, filling out the final batch of divorce paperwork David had sent over. I was beyond the point of hesitation. The DNA results had come back last week. 100% certainty the child wasn't mine. It wasn't just a betrayal of vows anymore. It was the attempted theft of my identity, of fatherhood. I signed the last page and exhaled slowly. David called me just before noon. "She's already got a lawyer," he said, not surprised. "She's claiming emotional abandonment. Says she was neglected, unsupported, and that your schedule made the marriage unbearable." I laughed. "She cheated because she was lonely?" "Basically," David replied. "Classic move. She's going to try to turn this into a sympathy play. She wants the house. She'll try. But with the video evidence, the DNA test, and her clear infidelity, she doesn't have a leg to stand on. You're on solid ground." "Good. I'll file this afternoon. She'll get served by Monday." "Let her scream," I muttered. "I've already heard enough lies to last a lifetime." David paused. "You sure you're ready for how ugly this might get?" I stared out the window toward Tyler's house. He hadn't shown his face in days. "Ugly's already been done," I said. "Now it's just cleanup." And it was. By Monday, Lauren had been officially served. She sent a barrage of texts immediately afterward, trying every angle. "We don't need lawyers. We can talk." You don't have to ruin me, Brandon. This isn't what I wanted. I ignored everyone. By Wednesday, I got a call from her lawyer. We'd like to request mediation, he said, professional but pressed. Lauren is open to negotiating terms for a more amicable outcome. I'm not, I replied. There's no amicable way to recover from what she did. She is still pregnant, and the father is next door, I snapped. Take it up with him. Silence. Then the lawyer sighed. Understood. That Friday, Lauren called one last time. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. Her voice was calm. Too calm. You've made your point, Brandon. I wasn't trying to make a point, I said flatly. I was ending a lie. She let out a slow breath. I never wanted to hurt you. You didn't just hurt me, I said, leaning against the wall. You disrespected me. You humiliated me. You used me. And now you want mercy because you're scared. I'm not scared, she lied. No, I asked. Then why are you calling me instead of Tyler? She didn't answer. Because he never planned to stick around, did he? I continued. He wanted what you gave him, not the consequences. You don't understand what I was going through. Maybe not, I said. But I understand who you are now. And that's enough. She was quiet for a long moment. Then her voice cracked. What happens now? Now, I said, you raise your child. You move on. Just not from my house and not on my dime. You're really going to leave me like this? I nodded, knowing she couldn't see it, but needing to do it anyway. Exactly like this. I hung up, and that was the last time I ever heard her voice. After I hung up on Lauren, a strange kind of silence settled over my life. It wasn't peaceful, not yet. It was more like a vacuum, like the noise, the chaos, the betrayal had all been sucked out of the room, and now I was left standing in the quiet aftermath with nothing but the wreckage. I wasn't sad. I wasn't relieved. I just existed. The house felt too big, too clean. Her things were gone. Her voice was gone. And even though that was exactly what I wanted, it still felt surreal to walk through the living room without bracing for a sarcastic comment, or hear nothing but my own footsteps in the hall instead of the sound of her on a phone call sheet in the moment I walked in. I went to work, came home, cooked for one. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't go out. I let the days stack quietly on top of each other while the legal side moved along in the background. The divorce wasn't finalized yet, but the filings were in motion. David kept me in the loop. Lauren's lawyer was pushing for mediation again, sending proposals that kept getting more desperate. First, she wanted a cash settlement. Then she wanted a temporary allowance to support her pregnancy. The last one was the most pathetic. She wanted to move back in until the baby arrived. That one didn't even get a phone call from me. I just sent David a 2-word text. Absolutely not. Tyler had vanished. No cars in the driveway. No sound from the garage. If he hadn't been the reason all of this exploded, I'd almost forget he lived there. Word around the neighborhood was that he left town for a job opportunity. Translation: he couldn't face what he helped destroy. I couldn't blame him for running. Cowards do that. He got what he wanted, then bolted the second it got real. Now Lauren was left carrying the result of their little secret, while the man she cheated with pretended she didn't exist. And me? I was finally learning to breathe again. I'd sit on the porch with a drink and no one demanding attention. I could sleep through the night without wondering who she was texting. I could wake up and not feel like I had to win the approval of someone who had already decided I wasn't enough. It wasn't joy I felt. Not yet. But it was something close to freedom. Then she came back one more time. It was raining. One of those cold, steady spring rains that makes everything feel heavier. I was on the couch, reading, when the knock came. I didn't need to look. I knew it was her. I almost didn't answer, but something in me wanted to see it, to see how far she'd fallen. She stood there, soaked, umbrella hanging limp in one hand, the other gripping her phone like it might save her. She looked different, hollow, tired, and very pregnant. I need 5 minutes, she said. That's all I'm asking. I didn't say a word, just turned and walked back into the house. She followed. I didn't invite her to sit, so she stood in the middle of the room, dripping onto the hardwood floor. Her eyes scanned the space like she didn't recognize it anymore. I don't know where else to go, she said finally. I nodded. You said that last time. Her voice cracked. I mean it this time. I don't care. She blinked at that, stunned by how flat and immediate my words were. I made mistakes, she said. Mistakes are one-time things, I said. What you did was a pattern. I'm alone, she whispered. You earned it. She wrapped her arms around herself, rocking slightly. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just thought maybe you want to know the baby's due date. Histoire de hair. Why would I care about the due date of a child that isn't mine? She looked like I'd punched her. That's the truth, Lauren, I said. You cheated. You lied. And then you try to pass the consequences off on me like I owed you something. I don't. Not anymore. She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. So that's it. That was it the night I outed you in front of the neighbors. This is just you realizing it. I loved you, she said, her voice shaking. No, it'll be ya. You used me. There's a difference. I walked to the front door and opened it. The rain was still coming down hard. She looked at me one last time, and this time, she didn't argue. She walked past me, back into the storm. I closed the door behind her and locked it. And I didn't watch her leave. The silence after Lauren left wasn't sharp anymore. It had a dullness to it. Not quite peace, not yet, but something I could live with. Something that felt permanent. I didn't feel triumph when I shut the door on her in the rain. I didn't feel pity either. Just clarity. The kind that only comes after you've finally drawn the last line and made damn sure no one crosses it again. The divorce process pressed on like clockwork. David was relentless, which is exactly what I needed. He kept every interaction through legal channels. I didn't have to answer Lauren's calls or sift through emotional emails trying to guilt me into reconsidering. Her lawyer wasn't much better. He sent over one last plea, something about compromising on the property, citing Lauren's pregnancy and instability. I responded by sending the court all the surveillance footage I had. Every single night she had snuck out, time-stamped, archived. I included the DNA results, the receipts from our joint account showing charges that matched Tyler's lifestyle. It was an airtight narrative, and David made sure every page bled truth. I've never seen a case this lopsided, he told me on the phone. She's cooked. If she pushes this to court, she'll lose everything and probably owe you fees. Then let her push, I said. I don't want silence. I want a statement. And I meant it. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about resolution. Justice. Letting her feel the full weight of what she broke. She had betrayed more than just a marriage. She betrayed trust. Love. The foundation I'd spent years pouring myself into while she crept around in the dark thinking I'd never catch on. A week before the hearing, I got a letter from her lawyer. A complete retreat. She was giving up the house, withdrawing all financial claims, and would not contest the divorce. It came folded in an envelope marked confidential, but when I opened it, the paper practically screamed that she had nothing left to fight with. I walked through the house slowly that night, just to feel what it meant. My house. No lingering ghost of her perfume in the closet. No voice echoing off the walls asking where I'd been or why I left a dish in the sink. Just quiet and peace. Tyler never returned. His house went up for sale quietly, like he wanted to slip out the back before the neighborhood even noticed. I never saw him again. Last I heard, he moved to the other side of the state. Maybe he thought distance would hide what he'd done. But you can't outrun a reputation like that. The court date came and went in less than 20 minutes. She didn't even show up. Her lawyer submitted the signed paperwork. The judge reviewed the terms, nodded, stamped the decree. Just like that, I wasn't married anymore. I stepped outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun hitting my face. It was warm, familiar, but different somehow, like I was feeling it for the first time without a shadow following behind me. David joined me on the steps, sunglasses on, briefcase in hand. It's done, he said simply. Feels like it, I replied. He clapped my shoulder. Most people don't get to walk out a mess like this with their head high and their hands clean. You did. I shook his hand. Thanks for everything. He gave a nod and walked off. I stood there a while longer, watching people pass by, thinking about how many of them had no idea what I'd just survived. How many were walking around with smiles, hiding broken homes, or pretending everything was fine while the truth rotted just beneath the surface? I used to be one of them. Not anymore. Back home, I poured myself a drink, sat in my favorite chair, put my phone on silent, and I let myself breathe. Really breathe. It was over. No more begging. No more betrayal. No more pretending. And as the sky outside dimmed and the lights in the neighbors' houses flicked on, I stayed still, letting the quiet wrap around me like armor. Because I had fought my war, and I won. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like, and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.